Thank you. Good morning. I cannot believe this. This blows my mind. Welcome to Washington, D.C. Welcome to the GAC. I know that this might be a meager statistic to some of you, but this is my 22nd GAC. But I can assure you, none of them have been like this for me. I did not begin 2025 thinking this is where I would be. I'm just freaking out. I hope you know that. It is an honor to be here. This is huge. It's crazy. And give yourselves a round of applause. 6,200 plus of you coming here to Washington to use your voice. No, I mean it. I'm kind of praying for you. I know it's true. You've probably already blistered your feet. You're not sleeping. You've already made a series of poor nutritional choices. Here you are in Washington. And we're going to ask you to go hike the hill. Yeah, I'm glad you're here for the marathon. This is a crazy event. It's amazing. There's pomp. There's parties. Politics, policy. It's huge, but it's not huge for the sake of being huge. In all the pomp and party, I hope that you take a minute to breathe in the significance of what calls us here. The reason this is a big deal has more to do with the historic and ongoing execution of an idea, a social movement, and what it means. This is, in fact, more than just a business model. It's one of the most successful social movements in the history of America. And I don't believe that's hyperbole. I've been thinking about it for a long time. Now, I'm not suggesting, I'm not suggesting that retail finance and access to affordable credit rises to the level or equivalency of some of the struggles that we've had in our country. There are much more significant, much more important, and much more meaningful fights that have happened in this country over the course of our 250 years. But I'll declare this as boldly as I can, that right there alongside political freedom, religious freedom, economic freedom, the right to rise through effort and merit, is one of the fundamental pursuits of happiness in this country. And if you try to quantify it, if you look over the arc of our history, the number of lives that have been touched because credit unions exist, it is one of the great social movements in the history of our country and therefore in the history of humanity. It is. It is. So yes, this is a very big deal. And being gathered here is unbelievably humbling to me. And I hope it is to you. The collective power in this room is inspiring. Now, credit union's greatness is the sum of millions of individual stories. You and I have seen them up close. And we've lived them in my family. And I'd like to share one. My wife's father was a machinist at an Air Force Base repair depot. And a member of what was then Federal Employees Credit Union. He was a young father, a blue-collar employee, working hard to support his family, when he learned that his third daughter at the age of 7 was diagnosed with a rare ovarian cancer. I used to imagine what it must have been like for him, trying to figure out what to do next, how to hold it together, and provide for every possible amount of care for his daughter. A few years ago, I came to understand exactly what he was feeling when my own daughter, at 18 years old, was diagnosed with that same cancer. But my father-in-law, in this tender moment of his life, had a manager. His name was Norm. And Norm was a volunteer board member at Federal Employees Credit Union. And he literally took him by the hand and walked him to the credit union so that he could figure out how to care for his daughter. That single story a generation ago that my family will never forget. And just to catch you up, Al Michaels, we heard this question asked a long time ago, do you believe in miracles? The answer for me is yes, I believe in miracles. I've had the honor of hearing these types of stories directly and consistently for the last 20 years. Throughout this week, we'll be sharing examples of how credit unions are making a difference in their members' lives and within their communities. Just a few months ago, I happened to be sitting next to a man who told me his credit union story, and I'd like you to hear it.
I grew up in Tijuana, Mexico. My mother was 13 years old when she was pregnant with me. My father was 28. It was a rough life. I don't know the true story of a 28-year-old and a 13-year-old mom coming to the United States when I was about 3 years old. The challenges of that, being the oldest of 5 boys, 3 of my brothers being gang members, was a huge challenge. We grew up and moved from different homes from Tijuana, San Diego to Long Beach. Credit union member since 1989. As I became a college aide for the school district, I had to open up an account for my checks to be deposited. So I went to the credit union right down the street from my apartment. And there was a person named Marilyn there who helped me every single time I went in there, at least once a month, to get my statement printed. She was amazing. It made me feel like I was a member of the family. And that was where I started with the credit union. And that really helped me to believe and feel like I could be really a positive influence and a positive citizen in the community because of the way she made me feel. Well, my story is unique to me, obviously, but also there's so many millions and millions of stories out there where people need to feel empowered by their situations. Sometimes you could be really down and really feel, just like there's no hope in sight. And as a board member of the LBS Financial Credit Union, to me, that is just the giving piece that I feel so humbled and honored to be a part of.
Just let that sink in. Did you hear it? He told me at that dinner that receiving his credit union membership card was the first time that he felt like a human being. And it gave him hope. And with that hope, Dr. Jay Camarino went on to transform thousands of young people's lives as an educator. He retired just last year as an assistant superintendent of the Long Beach Unified School District. And he's continuing to have an impact as the board chair of LBS Financial Credit Union. I want to thank Dr. Camarino, who's here with us today, for sharing your story. Dr. Camarino. Those 90 seconds are a brief glimpse into why it's important that we industrialize, accelerate, and amplify the capture and retelling of these credit union stories. I'm guessing every one of you can think of these stories. That's a humanity that isn't found anywhere else in retail financial services. And you as credit union leaders, as board members, marketers, communicators, advocates, you're part of this process of capturing and retelling these stories of humanity. As someone who has spent a career on both sides of these policy meetings that we're going to be taking this week, I can tell you that those stories, coupled with the data that brings the scope and scale of this noble work, resonates 100 times deeper than any chart. Every meeting has graphs, facts, and figures, but very few of them have a ready-made example of a life changed for the better. These transformational experiences are what's at stake if we do not advocate. Our tax status exists because nearly 100 years ago, it was clear that the masses of America were being left behind. So Congress passed the Federal Credit Union Act to expand that access. Credit unions have proven that middle America can and deserve to be served. Here's the challenge. For the last 9 years, I've taught an advocacy course at Western Credit Union Management School to now a couple of thousand of you. And in every one of those classes, I ask the question, why are credit unions here? And invariably, those classes give the classic answer right out of the textbook. We are not-for-profit cooperatives here to serve our members. While that may be true, it's not a complete answer. Credit unions are here because the government says we can be here. And it can be taken away. And we have enemies with deep pockets and deep relationships that see credit unions as a threat to their bottom line. And they don't hesitate to spend whatever it takes to destroy this business model. We saw it 75 years ago. Bankers had a well-funded, well-executed campaign to eliminate their not-for-profit competition. Amongst the institution targeted in the 1940s, credit unions are the only ones that retained their status then, and we're the only ones left. But we can't take it for granted. Our movement exists today because you continuously uphold the not-for-profit responsibilities in your people-first mission. Last year, when everything was on the table to pay for these extended tax cuts, we could have lost that tax status. But we came together as a unified voice, the entire system, leagues, credit unions, your members across the country, along with our allies, we advocated for the 145 million people that you serve, the military and veterans, teachers, farmers, small business owners, first responders. We reminded Congress of the transformative power of cooperative finance. Give yourselves a round of applause for that. We can't spike the football yet. This is never over. Eliminating the credit union tax status would cost the country billions of dollars, but even worse, it would eliminate a proven path to economic freedom. We were successful last year, but the threat is active and it is not going away. And the truth is, every banker argument is based on one lie. And that lie is that growth somehow equals a departure from the foundational philosophy of being a cooperative financial institution. And that is simply not true. It's not true. But that hasn't stopped the banks. That hasn't stopped the banks from spreading that lie and attempting to divide this movement from within, and we cannot allow ourselves to be divided. Our mighty small credit unions and large credit unions have so much more in common than any for-profit bank. As a unified movement, all of us must have the discipline and the wisdom to see that this model is under constant threat. And we must have the discipline and the wisdom to stay together. While credit union membership has grown to new heights, our market share has remained modest, steady for the last 2 decades. In fact, you've heard it, it's an irritating statement. Credit unions are one of the best kept secrets in financial services. Yes, we have 1.5 million people who have chosen to use a credit union, but how many of them know the how and the who and the why behind the credit union difference? And if they don't know, how can we expect policymakers to have this at their fingertips? And that's where the strength of our political machinery is crucial. And it is why the organizational imperative of America's credit unions is government advocacy. Everything we do, everything else will be put through that lens. Because if the government doesn't permit credit unions to exist, they don't get to exist. To the administration, Congress, regulators, we must make it crystal clear that credit unions are the answer to their calls for affordability. We are already here, we are already in the market, and we are already helping. We have the undeniable will of 145 million of our members who have chosen credit unions for their financial services. And that relationship creates a brand equity that is the most powerful political weapon that we have. These 145 million Americans are the great equalizer when we're up against these well-funded opponents in support of the business models that they wish to destroy. That's a lot of registered voters, and individual policymakers need to feel the earth move beneath their feet. Many of those policymakers are going to be on the ballot in this year's midterms. And again, just like last year, we saw the importance of electing pro-credit union Congress. We need a vote from each one of those champions to not only defeat the bankers' arguments, but to advance, empower, and to protect credit unions. Our PAC is one of the best tools to store and then deploy our political energy. And there are policies that we need to have changed to keep credit unions relevant in the future. We have archaic constraints, policy relics that keep credit unions from reaching the other 2/3 of America. There are restrictions on who you can lend to. The very real scenario that a small business owner could walk into your credit union looking for capital, needing capital. And you have to tell them that you're up against some arbitrary banker-determined statutory cap. As you hold meetings on Capitol Hill this week, we're going to prioritize a few issues. Of course, rate caps, interchange mandates. We cannot let government price controls create a barrier between credit unions and those that they serve, and that's exactly what these changes would do. Reporting modernization, reporting threshold modernization. These are important not only to lessen the compliance burden that you're facing, but even if bills, including Congressman Andy Barr's, does not advance, the idea of keeping thresholds to move along with the economy top of mind in our policymakers is a strategic imperative. Fraud and scams. This is an issue It's ruining people's lives. You know this. You've lived these stories. You've stopped members from falling victims to these scams, and all of you have experienced the cost of fraud to some degree. It's a multi-billion-dollar business, and bad actors, we must remind our lawmakers that this is where they should do their real consumer protection work. Each one of those is part of the overall yes, that is an applause line. Each one of those is part of an overall advocacy strategy to increase the power of credit unions to improve people's lives. Thank you all for being here in the largest convening of the credit union family. It's great to see the power of so many people who not only perform amazing work in their credit unions and their communities, but have also traveled here to Washington, D.C. to shape the future of cooperative finance. People helping people. Cooperation, not for profit. You don't find that in many industries, and you certainly don't find it at the scale that credit unions deliver it every day. I'm fortunate to have spent most of my career fighting on behalf of cooperative finance, and it's the privilege of a lifetime to do it with this organization, with this team, and with leaders like you. You and I are the stewards of this great social movement. There are 145 million people who are looking to us to stand between them and those who would destroy their pathway to their pursuit of happiness and their economic freedom. That's why we're here. We cannot give an inch to those who would discount this difference by merely institutionalizing credit unions. We need to capture and speak of the transformation that is delivered in the lives of your members somewhere in your branches every day. We are here in this city for a reason. If it were just about pomp and parties, we could hold this in Orlando or Las Vegas. Please use your voice for your members this week. And while you're here using your voice, you may hear some suggesting that there's no difference between what credit unions offer and what banks offer. This is your moment to remind them that that difference is everything to our members. I am honored to stand shoulder to shoulder with you in this cause. Thank you, and have a powerful GAC. Thank you.